Okay, so I'd like to introduce everybody to our Hour of Code expert voice, Pahwa. He works, and let me try to get this correct because I looked it up again today. Atipka. No,
Atypica.
Atypica. Okay, Atypica, which is a company that he's going to talk about. It sounds really interesting. So without further ado, I'd like to just let you go. Thank you, Vi.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is really, really cool. And hey everyone, I see some hands there. So I guess what I had planned for today was basically we can spend some time talking about what kind of career paths are available in the field of like computer science, and like what it means in terms of like learning to code. I'll chat about a little bit about my background and kind of where I came from, what I kind of studied in school, and how I ended up here. And then I'll show you a little bit of what we're working on right now in terms of our product. And then we'll leave some time at the end for kind of questions and things like that. That might be helpful for everyone. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly, and we can start there. And I'll share my screen at some points, and I'll also stop sharing in between and kind of get a feel for how everyone's doing, and I'll probably have some questions of my own along the way. So with that, let me go ahead and share my screen. And I just kind of pulled up my LinkedIn profile here, just to give you a quick introduction. So my name's Vi. I'm a product manager here at Typica. Basically what product managers do is basically they are responsible for making sure things get done. So we work really closely with everyone on the team, from people who are writing code, people who are selling the product, people who are marketing the product. So, showing this and presenting this to other folks around the world. And our job is to work with all of them to make sure that our customers are getting value out of the product, and they understand how they can use it and how they can best utilize it for their own needs. So I'm actually also from the East Coast, and I'll kind of slide down here. I went to Lawrence High School in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, so not too far from you guys. I grew up in New Jersey, spent most of my life there, and then later I went to school at the University of Illinois, so in the Midwest. And then after school, I joined this company called Atypica. So we're based in California now. So I've kind of went from New Jersey to Illinois to California. Now I've been here for the last year and a half. So working on all sorts of different things. It's been really, really exciting. So our team is actually really, really small. So probably smaller than both your classrooms right now. So we are about 10 people, based in San Mateo, California, so near San Francisco. And the problem that we're trying to solve is to make sure that people have equal opportunity and to jobs and things like that, and make sure that companies are being thoughtful and fair when they hire people, and ultimately so they have more diverse and inclusive teams, meaning that people from all different kinds of backgrounds are represented, and everyone has a chance to progress in their career and find the job of that they their dream job, basically. So that's a little bit about me, how I came to Atypica, where I come from. I did study computer science in school. How many of you guys are familiar with computer science or code? Or awesome, a lot of hands. Very cool. So yeah, for those of you who aren't familiar, computer science is basically the study of understanding computers, and it's really, really broad. It covers things like, if you're building websites, like that's kind of computer science. Your computer itself runs on some software that an operating system, basically, and that's part of computer science. So it spans kind of across the board. You'll notice it, in your classrooms as well, with different software you guys might be using. You'll notice it at home. So I don't know how many people are familiar with Google Home or Amazon Alexa, or do you guys have any of those tools or products at home? You show hands. A lot of people. Very cool. Yeah, so those are all kind of powered by folks writing code and computer science. So it's a very, very broad field. And there's let me stop sharing for a quick minute. So there's a lot you can do with it. How many of you guys have had any experience writing code at all? Or maybe you have parents that have worked in the field, or anything like that? Just kind of get a feel.
So
few people in the high school.
That even includes things like Scratch Junior, right?
Yeah.
Or
actually, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I have the Scratch link pulled up on my computer, and I was going to show it for folks who hadn't seen it before. It's a really great program. I think I used it years ago, or maybe my brother used it. Really, really cool program. Helps you understand the building blocks of how computers work and how you can, build applications, whether it's like games or stories or, drawing pictures or graphics, things like that. So there's a lot that we can do there. In terms of, so a lot of people are familiar with Scratch. How many people think that they want to study something along the lines of computers in the future? A lot of people. Cool. Very exciting. And how many of you have a cell phone? Oh my God, that's a lot of people. I didn't have a cell phone in second or third grade, that's for sure. But they're basically like mini computers in your pocket. And there's a lot of really cool things you can do with them. I've seen people learning how to play piano on their iPads, or learning a new language. So the possibilities really with computers and technology are endless. So it's a really cool field, whether you're interested in medicine, or you're interested in teaching, or you're interested in law. Software is kind of powering and a big part of all of these disciplines now. So even if you have interests outside of just computers, and you're interested in things like I mentioned, like medicine or teaching or things like that, you still have the ability to make an impact and go into those fields with a background. So always really helpful. And even if you don't go into computer science, knowing how to code or understanding how things work always is really, really helpful. So with that, I'm going to start sharing my screen again and show you a little bit of our product, and tell you exactly a little bit of what we're building. Can you guys see my screen? Maybe like a thumbs up or something if you guys can see my screen now.
And if you don't mind, I'm just going to interject for the second and third grade class.
Sure.
So what you do at your job and your company is make sure that businesses are practicing keeping people in their green circle. So it's using caring, sharing, and respect, and including all kinds of people. So that should sound very familiar to our younger classmates.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And there's a lot of interesting things going on in the background, but ultimately, it gets kind of boiled down to these dashboards with a lot of cool visualizations and pictures and colors, to kind of show you, hey, like, here's places where you are not doing so good. Here's places where you're doing really well, and here's how you can improve. So if we come into here, we can see these charts, right? So we can see, okay, here's how many men you have in your company. Here's how many women you have in your company. And here's how this is kind of changing over time. And some of these graphs might be a little bit hard to read, so no problem there. But we have the ability to basically tell companies and help them ultimately make the process more fair, have more people included, and regardless of what background people come from. So whether their parents were in a field that was related to what they're studying, whether they learned to code at the age of 5 or at the age of 50. It shouldn't matter as long as you have those skill sets. So that's a big thing that we think about, and we want to instill with the people we work with and people we speak to. Really thinking about how can we be more fair and how can we include everyone. So this is a little bit of the product. We'll see things like, oh, here's how many people you hired. Here's how many people that applied to your company. So a lot of times you'll notice and your parents might be applying to different jobs, or there are different websites where they might find jobs. Ultimately, companies are the ones that are coming in and saying, oh, we had 10 people apply, and here's what they had. Someone was applying that was trying to write code. Here's someone that was interested in more, selling the product, right? And I'm going to stop sharing for a quick second just to get an idea of how many of you folks are involved in like Cub Scouts or Girl Scouts or things like that. Okay, so we have a handful of people. So it's the people who are kind of in sales roles. The way you guys are selling like cookies, people are selling software. So they're like, hey, these cookies are really great. And in this case, it'll be like, hey, this software is really great. Here's the cause that we're doing. Maybe in the case of Girl Scouts, you might be saying, hey, we're raising money for our troop so we can learn a lot of things. We can maybe do a camping trip, or buy some more tools, or kind of team building activities. On our side, when people are selling, they're selling software. So it's very, very similar, actually. So if that's something that you're really, really interested in, know that you don't have to know how to code. You can still be a part of the technology industry in a bunch of different disciplines. So how many of you guys like doing that? How many of you guys like selling like cookies or other things that you might be doing? I think when I was in Cub Scouts, I used to sell hoagies. So that was something we did. So a lot of people, very cool. So just know that you have a career path in something like that. If you like to sell to people, you like talking to people, you like to get them interested in what you're doing, and you're interested in what they're doing too, then that's a potential career path as well. So you don't have to necessarily be building the product like these, visualizations and colors and graphics, but you can also be selling the product. And that's very important still. So every role in the company is important.
So I get the sense that your job with people selling the software is to make their lives easier. So you're doing it as a service?
Yes.
People? Okay.
Yeah. So before, companies really didn't have much of an idea of what the people who want to work at their company, they don't know what they look like. They don't know, like, oh, we have people that are interested in these different departments. We don't know if they're men or women. We don't know what backgrounds they come from. But we want to make sure that no background or no demographic or no, just because like your skin color is different, we don't want people to be biased or what's the word? We don't want people to treat you differently, basically, during the application process. So we give people, we show them exactly, hey, you had people from these different locations applying. Here is what they were. Maybe they had, 10 boys apply and, 10 girls apply. But say only one girl got hired, but 10 boys got hired. That doesn't seem right. Like, assuming they have the same skill sets, they're applying for the same roles, like there's a big difference. And we want it to be as equitable as possible. So we want, ideally, if in a perfect world, that like if 10 boys were hired, then 10 girls were hired too, and no one was everyone was treated fairly along the way. So I'll go back to sharing my screen really quickly. So we have a couple of different products. One is more like that. our second product, and you'll see a lot of cool kind of visualizations here. You can see, okay, here's where we will start the process with the company. And here you'll be able to say, okay, well, I want to know about skills, right? So just like some of the skills that you guys mentioned earlier about like things like caring and sharing, and the other skills might be in terms of management, or in terms of research, or in terms of sales. So how can we say, like, here are the people that have these particular skill sets? And one important thing to note here is, like, soft skills are very, very important. So how you communicate with each other, how nice you are to other people becomes really, really important. So having more of the technical kind of skills, whether it's in sales or computers or coding or anything like that, is great. But ultimately, you want to be really nice to people. You want to understand where they're coming from, understand the backgrounds they come from, understand what they're good at and what they might not be so good at. But you complement, if they're not good at one thing and you're better at that same thing, they might be better at another thing that you're not so good at. So understanding how you can kind of fit those two pieces together to make a team. And that's kind of what building software is about. So that's kind of what I had to present in terms of the product, in terms of my background. And I know we said 20 to 30 minutes. So I also wanted to leave time for questions that people might have. And at the end, I'll just leave some advice and parting notes.
Okay, I think that sounds like a good idea. If anybody has a question, they can unmute their microphone and ask. I do have a question while they're getting organized. Were you with this company from its inception?
I was not. So I started about a year after.
Okay.
So when I joined, there was about 7 people, and by the end of the year, we should be at about 12 or 13. So almost double, but still smaller than your classroom.
I think that's really interesting, though, to see a company from the time it's a baby, and see it grow. So it looks like there is a gentleman in Mr. Schweitzer's room who has a question for you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Carter.
How old were you when you started coding?
I was actually a little older than you guys were. I think I started when I was a freshman in college. So that was about 4 or 5 years ago, so about 18. So I started later than a lot of you guys might be starting. Thanks for your question.
Go ahead.
How did you get interested in coding?
Good question. So for me, I was really interested in problems, and I was interested in a lot of different things. I wasn't really sure like what I wanted to do when I grew up, but I saw that writing code could help me do work in a lot of different places. So whether I wanted to help folks, in this case, people who are doing recruiting and hiring people, but you could also kind of apply the same skills to helping doctors or helping engineers or helping lawyers. So that was what was really interesting to me, that I could apply this to so many different things. That's where my interest came from. Thank you for your question.
And Mrs. Nicely has a kiddo?
Hang on. Now you can do it.
How long were you in Illinois?
I was in Illinois for about 4 years. Yeah, it's very there's a lot of similarities, but it's also pretty different compared to like Pennsylvania and New Jersey and now California is also very different. So yeah, it's something I would encourage is like as you guys like are getting older and maybe ask your parents like, hey, I want to go check out a new place. And it's good to, meet people and enjoy the food from different places and enjoy the new sites. So if you do get opportunities to do that in the future, that's great. I recommend it.
Okay, Mrs. Nice.
Go ahead.
What kind of coding do you do?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. So how many of you guys are familiar with like different programming languages, like at least names of them or anything like that? Cool. Okay. Looks like maybe half of the people.
Yeah, I know that elementary definitely knows block programming.
Mm-hmm.
And
So,
Francis, what do you know?
I know processing and Scratch
awesome.
and read.
Knows.
Oh, I know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, Java, processing, Scratch.
Awesome.
I think that's it.
Cool. Yeah, so at work, I use two main kind of programming languages, or I guess three. The first one is called Ruby, like the gem, like the mineral. The second one is called Python, like the snake, but very different. And I also use a language called SQL, which helps you basically answer questions like, if you want to know like how many people applied to my company in the past week, right? You can use that kind of language to help answer those kinds of questions. So 3 different languages at work.
And I have a question. We're starting to use we're starting younger and younger to get kids exposed to computer science. And once you learn one language, how easy is it to say, well, if I know this about language A, then I could use that to understand the next language? Is that pretty?
Yeah, I would say so. There's a few different kinds of languages. One of them is called object-oriented. So once you know one of them, it's very easy to learn others. The syntax and like the structure of it might be very different, but the concepts are still the same. Like understanding, how you I guess format your code and how you think through the problem is still the same.
Okay, Mr. Schweitzer's class, it looks like you have a question.
What did you do before you coded?
Yeah, what did I? That's a great question. Before that, I did a lot of different things. So I was in school. I was really interested in stats and math and things like that. But I also spent a lot of time playing sports, and I really like cooking and eating food. So I was like learning to cook. So some of the sports that I played growing up, I played soccer, I played tennis, I played basketball, I swam. So I also do encourage being, do things that you like to outside of schoolwork and outside of programs. If you like a sport, like pursue it. If you want to learn a language, learn a language. If you want to play an instrument, play an instrument. So yeah, that's kind of what I was doing before writing code.
Okay, nice. Mrs. Nicely's class?
What is your favorite part of coding?
My favorite part of coding. My favorite part of coding is actually being able to figure out what the problem is. So if someone tells me, can you build me an app that can order food for me? That's a very big thing. It sounds simple, but being able to break down the problem into small pieces and say, okay, to order food, I need to have some sort of place where I can see the different places and different restaurants, right? Then there's another portion where I actually make the order. There's another portion where I check to see if the order is on time. So there's like different components to that problem that you can break it down to small pieces. That's my favorite part of coding.
Wait, now I'm going to ask if any of the second or third graders know what that is called when you break a problem down. I'm thinking that they do.
Carter.
What is your dream job?
Dream job is kind of what I'm doing right now, honestly. I get to work on a lot of different things. I'm getting to help people, kind of make a difference in the community, especially in the technologies field. So really, I'm pretty happy where I am right now, and I'm learning a lot. So I would say this is like a dream job.
Okay, thank you. How about we take one more for Mrs. Nicely's, and then if the high school has one?
It was called decomposing.
Awesome.
Okay, high school, do you have a question?
On your website, it talks about intelligence and how you can predict gender and race from a resume. And I was wondering what type of algorithm you use and if it's based on their skills or like their background or how you use it.
That's a good question. So basically, we look at a bunch of different fields. So we look at like your name, we look at like things like your location, and then a bunch of other things. And we kind of put that together to say like, hey, if like, for example, our CEO's name is Laura Gomez. So we would say, hey, this person has like an A, her first name ends with an A, so it's likely to be a girl. And then also looking at the last name and saying, oh, this person's from California, so maybe this might mean that they're likely, Latina. So that's kind of how it works. It looks at the different pieces, it looks at like locations and names, but really mostly focuses around names and how those are kind of structured.
So you're like a detective.
Yeah, except it does it automatically.
Yeah, you've programmed it that way.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of error around that algorithm?
Yeah, so
Like, do you have to?
For seeing if a person's like a guy or a girl, like in gender, it's 96% accurate. On the race side, it's about 88% accurate. So there's a little bit of error. It's a hard problem to solve, but it's still really helpful for our clients.
Bye. We appreciate the time.
Work with companies. I'm sure a lot of, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Finish it.
Oh, just yeah, we work with some companies that you guys might have heard of, like Netflix. So I'm sure you guys, probably use it. So they're using our products. That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. I want to thank you for your time today. A couple of the classes were switching with other.
Yeah, I saw the message. I wasn't sure.